Hello everyone, my name is Axel Damian, welcome to the channel, and today's video I'm going to go over how much volume do you need, or in other words, how many total sets do you need for each muscle in order to see results. So to help us answer this question, we're going to look at a few different studies. As well, towards the end of the video, I'll give you some recommendations that you can use to apply towards your training, and this will work if you're a beginner or an intermediate, or even if you're an advanced lifter. So let's get started. So up first we have a meta-analysis and systematic review done by Brad Schoenfeld and colleagues. So this review was composed of 15 different studies. When looking at the outcome for this review, by only observing weekly sets, it was shown that each additional set per week was associated with an increase of 0.37% in muscle mass. Now, when looking at the outcomes through three categories of total weekly sets, a less than 5 sets group, a 5 to 9 sets group, and a 10 plus sets per muscle group, the muscle size increase for the less than 5 total weekly sets group was 5.4%. The 5 to 9 sets group had an increase of 6.6%, and the 10 plus sets group had an increase of 9.8%. Now, when looking at the outcomes through two categories of total weekly sets, so in this case, a less than 9 sets group and a greater than 9 sets group, the muscle size increase for the group with less than 9 sets was 5.8%, and the group that was greater than 9 sets had an increase of 8.2%. Overall, results showed an incremental dose-response relationship whereby progressively higher weekly training volumes resulted in greater muscle hypertrophy. So what do they mean by dose-response relationship? So let me give you an example. Let's say I give someone a training program of just 5 total weekly sets, and I give another person a training program of 10 total weekly sets. So the person with the 10 total weekly sets has a larger dosage. Dosage meaning he has more training volume, or in this case, more total sets for each muscle. Now, because of this, he may see a larger response. So in other words, he may see more muscle growth due to the larger amount of training volume he is doing in comparison to the guy who's doing less total sets per week. Now remember, everyone is different. Not everyone can train at higher levels of volume and still see greater muscle growth. There's a cutoff. Depending on how much experience you have as a lifter will determine how much volume you can do in your training program. The more experience you have, the more training volume you can do, because you have worked up to that work capacity. But if you're a newer lifter, then generally you don't want to do as much volume right off the bat because you'll run into issues like fatigue. Alright, so let's hop into the second study where again they found a dose-response relationship between total sets and muscle hypertrophy. This study was comprised of 48 men with no prior weight training experience. They were assigned to 3 different training groups. There was a 1 set group, a 3 set group, and a 5 set group. Each week, 3 training sessions were performed for 6 months by each group. Training sessions were with at least 48 to 72 hours apart from each other. In order to measure the hypertrophic responses from the different doses of volume in each group, measurements of muscle thickness were done on the elbow flexors and elbow extensors using ultrasonography. After the 6 months of training concluded, they found that the 1 set group had no real significant muscle thickness change of the elbow flexor, while the 3 set and 5 set groups both had significant increase in muscle thickness in that area. The 5 set group had a greater muscle thickness increase in comparison to the 3 set muscle group. The elbow extensor only showed significant muscle thickness increase in the 5 set group in comparison to the other 2 groups, which did not show any significant increase. Overall, this study showed that multiple sets in a workout were superior to only performing 1 set per workout. Alright, so now that we talked about some of the literature surrounding this topic, let's go ahead and begin to discuss how we can apply some of this information towards our training, starting off with our beginners. Alright, so the worst thing you can do being a beginner is doing way too much work way too early on. This can quickly lead to you running into issues with being overtrained and over-fatigued. So to avoid this, for the first 4 weeks of training, stick within the 5 to 8 total weekly sets range. This will be enough work to where you'll see improvements in muscle growth and as well as improvements in technique. So to do this, step 1 would be to choose your training split. Step 2 would be to choose exercises that target each muscle you have in your body. And then step 3 would be to allocate sets to each of those exercises until you reach your total weekly sets goal for each muscle. Now, after those 4 weeks of training, only then should you increase your total weekly sets goal to around 10 to 12 total weekly sets So if you're an intermediate, general recommendations are to stay within the 10 to 20 total weekly sets per muscle range. So let's say you've been doing around 10 sets per muscle and you haven't been seeing any progress lately, try bumping that up to maybe 15 sets for each muscle. Run that for a few months and compare that block of training compared to your previous block and see if you benefit from increased volume. Now, let's say you've already been training at that upper limit of 20 sets for each muscle and you haven't been seeing any progress as of late. Now, this can mean two things. One thing it might mean is that you're doing way too much volume. You're not giving yourself enough time to recover. So go ahead and dial back some of that volume to, let's say, 10 to 15 and try running another block of training and see if results improve. Now, if you dialed back volume and you didn't see results getting better, then go ahead and try increasing volumes past 20 sets for each muscle. Now, as of right now in the literature, we do not know what the upper limit is for volume. We do know that at a certain point, once volume gets way too high, your results and your progress begin to taper off and go down. So we want to make sure we avoid that, or we want to make sure we're tracking that to see that if we're doing too much volume and we start plateauing and the results get worse, we correct that before it reduces the amount of progress we can make. Alright, that about wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button, and go ahead and share this to whoever you feel like would benefit from watching this video. And if you have suggestions for what you would like to see in the next video, go ahead and leave a comment down below. And once again, thank you all for watching.